Hey guys, I'm sitting behind the wheel of the Audi e-tron here at the Los Angeles Auto Show, and behind the camera is my man Tommy. How you doing, Tommy?
Yeah, good.
And I'm behind the wheel of this car because we're not going to show you this car. We're actually going to show you the brand new Audi e-tron Sportback, and that is on a turntable just over Tommy's right shoulder, but it's also behind a barricade, so we can't go inside of it. But the cool thing is that the inside of the e-tron Sportback is going to be very similar to the inside of this Audi e-tron. So that's why we're starting in here. And if you guys are fans of Audi and you like their very modern 3 digital display dashboard, then you're going to get the same thing in the new Sportback. Now, of course, this car is already for sale. If you're a fan of electric cars, you'll note that this is Audi's all-electric car. It has a range of about 205 miles. And we've actually driven this and have done a complete review of it. Now, the horsepower and the torque are very similar in the e-tron and in e-tron Sportback. So Tommy, what's the horsepower and the torque? 355 horsepower, if I remember right?
Yep, and 414 pound-feet of torque. However, this vehicle has an overboost function, which will increase that to 402 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque for a short amount of time.
Yeah, basically if you floor the accelerator, which I'm doing right now, what happens is you get a little bit more power and you get a 0 to 60 time of about 5.5 seconds. Now, if you like Audis and you love electric cars, then of course this is the car for you because it brings all the classic Audi design cues, which are very modern, very sleek, very, well, let's call it, yeah, contemporary industrial design to your electric car. Now, I think we've been waiting long enough, Tommy. Let me walk over and show you the Sportback, because the Sportback should have a little bit of a surprise, and I'll tell you that in a second. If you look over here, you guys will see this is a classic crossover. So, you know, a roof line that goes all the way back and it slopes gently to give you, of course, all the utility of a crossover. Now, the Sportback, on the other hand, let's walk over there. Look at that. Yep. It's basically an e-tron kind of forward of the B-pillar, and then you've got a much sportier, much more
aggressive rear end.
Yeah.
So this is more of like a coupe-like profile. So much more often nowadays we see these sloping rear ends on modern vehicles and modern crossovers, and this is the classic example. So this looks like basically what BMW did with the X3 and X4. So the X3 is a more traditional SUV, the X4 is a sloping coupe. The e-tron Sportback is the sloping coupe version of the e-tron.
Now, remember I said probably the only kink in the armor of the e-tron is that it's got a range of only 205 miles. And when you compare that to a Tesla Model X, which has 325 miles of range, that is certainly 30% less, and you guys know that. And that, you know, is significant because electric cars are like real estate. They're about range, range, range. But because this car has a little bit more of an aerodynamic profile, on the European cycle, it gets a longer range. Plus, Tommy, what do they let you do with the battery?
Well, okay, this is interesting actually. So the e-tron and the e-tron Sportback have the same 95 kilowatt hour battery. However, in the standard e-tron, which is behind us here, they only allow you access to about 83 kilowatt hours of that battery. However, if you step up to the e-tron Sportback, you're allowed to use about 86.5 kilowatt hours of the battery. So once again, they're never going to let you use the whole thing for longevity of the battery, so you don't brick it, stuff like that. But the e-tron Sportback gives you more access to the pack. Other things that the e-tron gives you, unfortunately, is less rear seat headroom, so you lose about 0.8 of an inch of headroom in the rear seat, and that's due to that beautiful kind of coupe-like design.
Yeah, but the important part of that, of course, means that the e-tron Sportback is going to have a little bit more range. We're guesstimating now, probably instead of 205, more like 225. So
we should clarify.
Yeah.
Officially, it's 204.
Yeah.
But about 205.
Yeah, officially, but it should have a little bit more range. Now, of course, if you're a keen observer, you'll notice the outside rear view mirrors, and those, of course, aren't going to make it into production. They're those classic designer mirrors that are cameras that in Europe I think might actually be legal, but here in America, because we've got some really funky and I think antiquated rules about cars, those will never make it into production, even though they are pretty cool. Would you say, Tommy?
Yeah, I think they're gorgeous, but you know, being in the US, we have some pretty silly rules about headlights and mirror design. So
like laser headlights, which I would love to see, but in America are still illegal. Now, the other thing that's unique about the e-tron, of course, is its charge rate. So Audi, if you look, has a charger right next to it, and there's a reason for that, because of course Audi is using Electrify America's charging stations, and some of them have now incredibly fast DC charging capability. And Audi will tell you that they can get 80% of this car's charge. This is pretty standard, 80%. Why not 100? Because charging slows down as you get closer to the end of the capacity of the battery. So we're looking at about probably a half hour to get 80% charge, which is pretty important. If you know, we're doing a new series on electric cars called the Loveland Trials. We're calling it the world's toughest electric car test, where we drive it from our office up a mountain and then back down, and one of the criteria we use is how fast a car can charge. Isn't that right, Tommy?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And with that DC fast charging capability, this vehicle, we'll have to see how it performs in the real world, but it should perform pretty well. Now, here's a good look at the rear end of the car, and cargo space actually dropped from 29 cubic feet to about 22 cubic feet. So, of course, like anything in life, the better it looks, the worse it may perform.
Tom, I'm going to ask you a quick question. When is it available? While I talk about where it's built. This car is built in a specific factory that was built just for the e-tron. I believe it's in Europe. I'm going to say it's Belgium. I could be wrong. If I made that mistake, let me know in the comments below. But usually when the car is out here on the turntable, we're getting to the point where it's going to be available very quickly. Now, I know pricing has not yet been released, so we don't know what the pricing is, but keep in mind that Audi still does have its full $7,500 federal tax credit, so whatever the price will be, and I suspect it'll be a little bit more than the regular e-tron, which is in the $70,000 to $80,000 range, depending on how you get it configured. Then you still have the $7,500 federal tax credit, and in Colorado, where we're at, a $5,000 local tax credit, but that is dependent on the state you're in.
Yeah, Audi says that this car will be available in Europe in the spring of 2020.
Yeah, there you go. So for all you Europeans, you're going to get a chance to get a much sexier Audi e-tron. Now, be sure to stay tuned to TFL Now, because we're going to have a lot more coverage from the LA Auto Show, including all the newest reveals. And don't forget, every Monday and Friday at noon PST, we do a show called either Truck Talk or What Car Truck Should I Buy, where we answer all of your questions, because I bet you've got a lot of questions. So be sure to come back to TFL Now for that show. As always, this is Roman, and behind the camera,
Tommy. Head over to TFLcar.com for the latest and greatest in LA Auto Show coverage.
Hey Tommy, what do you think of the wheels?
They're cool.
Yeah, how about the yellow brake calipers?
Not so cool.
No? You don't like those, huh?
No.
All right, see you guys next time. Ciao.